Hi, my name is Brett Banfi, and this is another episode of Bitcoin Builders. Today, we have a very special guest, Garrett Krause from Troy Money. Before I introduce Garrett Krause, I just want to tell a quick story about my father. My father was a total jokester. He loved to surprise people and to present this riddle. It was one of his favorite riddles and every time we sat down at a restaurant, if we had a new waitress, he always loved to use this riddle. What weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of gold? A lot of people are used to this riddle, but they use a pound of bricks instead. The key to that riddle is that the pound of feathers and the pound of bricks, even though it seems like the bricks might be heavier, they're actually weigh the same. They're both a pound. But the reason why he loved this riddle is because there's actually a difference in the way that the weights are, or the systems are measured when it comes to gold and everything else in the world. And everything else in the world is measured through avoirdupois, which we're used to 16 ounces to the pound. But gold is actually measured in troy. And troy is 12 ounces to the pound, and every ounce weighs differently than a normal ounce that we see in the system. With that being said, I'm very excited to introduce Garrett Krause from Troy Money. Garrett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have you ever heard that riddle before? The weighs more, pound of feathers?
I've heard the riddle, but not used with gold, so I might have to steal that from you.
Yeah, that's a great one. Everybody thinks, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I'm not an idiot. They weigh the same." It's like, actually, they don't.
Yeah,
Because you walk into a gold dealer or a numismatic shop and ask for an ounce of gold, they'll give you a 31 gram ounce. Something, like you go anywhere else and you ask for an ounce, and it's 28 and a half grams.
correct,
So
correct.
yeah. I want to just start off with just how did you get into precious metals in general? What's your story, your origin story there?
Well, I actually started off in technology in 1986, and then I sold my company right out of college. I actually didn't even finish college, but I sold my company and I went into oil and gas. Being from Canada, precious metals, mining, minerals, oil and gas is kind of our thing. So I was many years in the oil and gas business, and then that led me into ores, iron ore, exporting, commodities trading. So I became a commodities trader, physical commodities trader, not on the COMEX. I actually physically exported real commodities out of Mexico, Peru, Chile, and then that led me to Guinea in Africa, where I became a full-scale mining company. And one of the recent things we've done the last 5 years is we've started mining gold. So we still have our bauxite mines, our iron mines, our lithium mines, but I got into gold over there because it's just big over there. And so I started mining gold and I started exporting gold from other small miners. I buy it on the ground, I export it to Dubai, I send it to a refinery through StoneX and Brinks, who are my long-term partners in that venture. And so that kind of led me to, that's kind of my background in the mineral space and the ores space. And so now I'm a gold producer, and I'm a gold exporter. And that's kind of got me into the business.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Has there been any consistent across the various different sectors of technology and mineral, something that has really served true for you for your entire career in terms of what you focus on and what you pay attention to when it comes to business?
Well, it's funny, I've always been kind of a tech geek from a high level. I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer, but I'm a kind of a visionary from tech. So and I'm an investor for 38 years. I've been an investor. So I was brought to my lawyer's office in 2017 in the height of the ICO craze. And she tried to get me to invest in these two ICOs she was representing. And I looked at the white papers and I came back a week later and I said, my securities lawyer is not advising me to invest in a couple of Ponzi schemes, because that's what I actually thought. That's what they were. And so, but I said to her, I said, but there's one thing that intrigues me, not knowing anything about blockchain, not knowing anything about cryptos or Bitcoin at the time. I mean, I knew what Bitcoin was, but I wasn't into it. I said, tell me more about this blockchain. And I went in deep into at that time was the Ethereum blockchain, and because that's what everybody was building on. And so I said to her, I said, let's do something out of the box. Let's take my asset, my bauxite mine, which has reserves and value, and let's put it on Ethereum. Let's create a token that's backed by a real world asset. And nobody had done that at the time. Nobody was thinking that way. We kind of got laughed at. But we actually wrote a smart contract on Ethereum on January 1st, 2018. And we actually launched a coin called Mineral Coin. And I didn't raise any money. I didn't need to raise money. I didn't do it to raise money. Thank God I didn't, because that might have been illegally selling a security. But I could legally tokenize an asset that I owned. And so I tokenized it. I wrote the smart contract. We launched it. And then all of a sudden, I think it was the third ever launched security token on Ethereum. And there wasn't even the word security token in the dictionary at that time. Nobody knew what this was. So a couple of months later, I was talking with exchanges to possibly trade this. And then the regulators came in and said, these are securities. And all of a sudden, I just put a freeze on it because I didn't want to be involved in illegally trading securities. And at that time, I didn't want to be a platform. So I just waited. So I got started very early in tokenizing real world assets, and it's intrigued me for the last 7 years. I've followed this space. I've followed all the platforms. I've tried to be involved, but I just found that there wasn't a lot that worked.
Yeah. And so I want to pivot maybe from technology focused discussion and business focused discussion to just real world, everyday, you and your neighbor, how's it going discussion. Because I think that there's an intersection there. So, you're someone that sort of stays abreast on a lot of what's going on in the world and understands the way that trickle down policies can affect normal everyday people. So can you explain and walk me through some of your thought process about how you feel the world at large is going? What do you think and see the problems are that it's facing if it doesn't adopt some of this technology that you're introducing, maybe in the next 10 to 15 years? And what unique opportunity does that represent for you, for your product, and eventually once your product gains adoption, for the world at large?
It's funny because I have a lot of friends and a lot of investors, and they keep coming to me and saying, you're in the gold business. How can I get gold? And I didn't really think of it before I started down this Troy Money tokenization of gold project. But it is very hard to buy physical gold, and it is very hard to buy it at spot, and it is very hard to hold it and vault it and get approval from Brinks. So the everyday common guy, even if you're a high net worth guy, you don't really have the access to just buying and direct access to physical gold. You can buy coins off an actor on TV. You can buy, and they're all way over spot. But just to have gold exposure, I'm talking direct gold exposure, where you actually have direct ownership of that weight of gold, whether it be 1 troy ounce to 1 kilogram. So I thought, hey, I have the infrastructure, and I saw the world going with inflation, with problems in the world, with problems in the banking system. The fiat currencies are failing. I believe they are totally failing, not just the US dollar. They are failing. They are deflating people's wealth away. And so for somebody to sit in a bank and hold $1 million worth of fiat currency and think they're safe, they're actually losing 10% a year. Even if they're being paid 4% interest, they're losing 5 to 10% a year holding that money. So in 10 years, that money's deflated away. So I thought, what if people could just hold gold? Now, the problem with gold generally has been it's hard to move. It's hard to liquidate. It's hard to get in and out of. And so that's where we put together the blockchain and physical gold in a vault. And we're allowing people for the first time in a long time, probably 50 years, to actually very easily get into gold, buy it, hold it in a token form, know that they have access to physical delivery at any time, but most importantly, know that they can sell that gold in a second, and they can also borrow against that gold if they have an emergency. So the liquidity options are key to the everyday guy that's out there, because if he has a problem and he's sitting with a bar of gold in his house, it could take him weeks for him to get money against that gold. Where if you're sitting with a blockchain application of gold, you can get access to your money the next day. So the technology, the current world events, the geopolitical risks, the fiat currencies, the other thing, the banking system. The banking system is in America isn't so on solid foundation. So people need to get away from those things that are risk and into a nice solid asset. That's why real estate has always been good. That's why art is becoming good. That's why collectors' cars. That's why people are buying hard assets that they actually own. So gold and silver and platinum and palladium fit right into that mode of moving your fiat cash to a hard asset.
Yeah, and I've heard you mention in the past, that you feel that Bitcoin is a commodity, BSV is a commodity. I don't even think you could call fiat currency an asset. It's not really an asset. It's it's a debt instrument, or one of the things that I'm curious about. I'm really excited to get into and see and demonstrate your product, Troy Money. But before we do that, I want to ask you just what is the general sense of some of the partners that you're working with, like when you're talking to Stana and Brinks and your other partners along this pathway. When you're discussing with them blockchain, is it still a mystery to them, or is this something where they're beginning to see the potential that this represents, and you feel like you're coming in at the exact right time?
Well, it's actually a perfect time to launch something like this for a number of reasons. But for instance, let's go back to your comment on fiat. Fiat is an IOU from the U.S. government. The U.S. government is $35 trillion in debt. In a year, it'll be $41 trillion in debt. Is it a good IOU to be behind a $41 trillion in debt, basically, country? To me, no. U.S. Treasuries are no better than junk bonds right now. To me as an investor, I'm not saying that I would want to have a bunch of fiat and a bunch of U.S. debt for my long-term assets. Just like you said, they're not assets. You're basically behind a bunch of world debt. So from that aspect of it, getting into removing the 50 years back to 1971 when a US dollar was backed by gold. And then prior to that, you had gold backs and you had gold notes, and everything was backed by gold. Gold was money. Somewhere along the last 50 years, we got away from that. And in 50 years, we've racked up with the petrodollar and going off the gold standard. The US has abused the privilege of being the world reserve currency, and now we're in massive amounts of trouble, and people don't even see it coming yet. So launching Troy Money at this time is a way where investors can buy, sell, own gold, platinum, silver, palladium, the four precious metals. And that's the first use case, and that's, I think, the most important use case. It's a simple use case, but in order to make that valuable, you have to trust somebody. People say, I want to buy Bitcoin because I don't have to trust anybody, and it's away from governments. And okay, you still have to trust the power companies. You still have to trust the power grid. You still have to trust the core developers. You still have to trust people. Whether it's decentralized or not, you're still trusting people. With a physical asset, tying a physical asset like gold to the blockchain, you have what they call trusted counterparties. Those trusted counterparties are where the gold sits, the vault, and who gives you access to liquidity and who holds and who gets you in and out of your gold if you want to get cash quickly. And so I've picked the two most recognizable and largest trusted counterparties on the planet. We got Brinks Worldwide, that's been in business for 250 years, and to date, they've not lost 1 ounce of gold ever. They're insured by Lloyd's of London, so for fraud or for anything, you're fully insured. Your gold is sitting in a vault. And StoneX is our access point. They're our liquidity provider. I do not need for you to sell and buy your Troy money on Binance or FTX. I do not need you to trust a crypto exchange like most other gold-backed tokens for liquidity. Move your stuff to Binance. FTX shuts down. They stop withdrawals. Just alone, there's a lot of risk there. So with StoneX, they provide us access to the most liquid gold markets in the world. The COMEX, the spot markets global. These markets have been around for thousands of years. They're developed, they're stable, and you don't have to worry about a cryptocurrency exchange in an offshore haven somewhere in the middle of the ocean to safeguard your asset. So two things: liquidity through StoneX, which is a Fortune 100 company, NASDAQ company, $4 billion market cap, 3,000 employees, 60 offices around the world, and the second biggest buyer and seller of gold daily on an annual basis, or on a daily basis. So with those two trusted counterparties and our partnership with Tokenized on the BSV, it's a very simple tech stack. It's a very simple infrastructure. And we're not a crypto. I always say we're not a crypto. We're an ownership token that can be traded, that can be moved around to your family members, that can be moved through the app, that can be mobile and give you instant liquidity.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like to use as the example of this is, prior to this digital age, we were issuing similar notes or similar types of contractual agreements for the purchase and sale of various different assets on paper. But does that mean that you're a paper trader just because you're buying a paper note? That the paper is just the vehicle that that delivers that value, right? I fully
That's what
understand
the
where you're coming
blockchain
from.
is. The
Exactly, the
blockchain
blockchain is just the new paper.
gives you the three trusted swaps, so you don't need lawyers, you don't need anybody. The blockchain takes care of all the administration of moving that paper easily.
Yeah, and one of the things that's unique about the tokenized platform is the ability to do these atomic swaps. So, like you said, you don't have to have someone send their funds first, and then, because it's always going to be a matter of trust, even though we know that it's secured and it's insured, et cetera. If one party, party A has to send it to party B, and then B has to send the funds, then there's all this due diligence that you have to do on party B to make sure that they'll actually follow through. But using this platform, it's actually an atomic swap. So it's taken care of at the base layer, the protocol layer, which is so important. And
Well,
so
that takes us to phase 2 of Troy Money. First of all, phase 1 is you can own and hold the asset and have liquidity. Phase 2 is you can use the asset, gold, as a payment vehicle. You can actually use it to buy dinner. You can use it to buy a car. You can actually move it around the world to buy things with. In the real world, not in the digital world, although it works in the digital world, you can actually use it to buy real world things and to buy a cup of coffee with the micropayment ability of BSV. It actually allows a merchant to take $5 worth of gold as a payment for coffee and not get whacked with a 30-cent fee from Visa plus a 4% fee. So the next phase of this is to make Troy Money a payments platform where gold, silver, platinum, palladium, or digital currencies can be actually used in the real world. Something that's not being done today.
Yeah, and that's what that was going to be my very next question to you, which is just I think that that's such a a beautiful potential promise that we have where we could actually return to what you were talking about, the money of our, thousands, the previous thousands of years. And it's not to say that that everyone would be forced to accept that, but if you present them two options, do you want to accept these limitless debt instruments, or do you want to accept this actual asset that you can theoretically pass down to your grandchildren? That's one of the things about the fiat, is that I want to work really hard, I want to accumulate a lot, but it's not necessarily for myself. I want to make sure that my children and my children's children have a life that they can sort of have some freedom to figure out what's important to them, to educate themselves, right? They don't have to go right into serfdom, essentially. And but if I'm passing them down fiat, I might spend my whole lifetime accumulating a giant pile of this fiat and then pass it down to them. By the time it gets to them, it's like carrying a glass of water through the desert, right? Like
Yeah,
by the time you cross that desert, that thing has evaporated a whole lot.
exactly.
So the ability to say, okay, well, this is now something that I own. I own this many grams
Yeah,
of gold. I own this many ounces of gold. This is in my name in this repository, and passing this down to my children. There's no hole in that bucket, right?
right.
There's not someone that's saying, okay, well, we've been holding this gold for you for the past dozen years. We want 10% of your gold. That's
Exactly.
something that you don't get with this Troy Money product. So yeah, leading into that, as you can see, this is something that really is important to me and matters to me. Not just the idea of passing down to the grandchildren, because I think that's important, and obviously I think everyone is interested in that. But what you said just prior to that, the ability to return to the using gold for payments to buy a cup of coffee. I mean, this is something that really we haven't seen, for, a long time, because, even gold's value was something where you wouldn't be using it for like a shot of whiskey or something like that. You'd probably be using something that was a little more readily available, like silver. Gold was something really that you like kept in a sock up in the attic or something like that. So actually seeing it probably for the first time, a resurgence of gold, that would be really, really important, I think, not just to the ability for people to understand the long-term impacts of their actions in terms of their ability to save, but also the ability to re vitalize a economy where people are feeling like they don't necessarily care as much to go out and try to earn this, because what's the point? You're earning water into a leaking bucket.
Yeah. Well, to a couple of those points, when a merchant accepts gold as payment, they can get fiat the very next day, probably quicker than they get their money from Visa, American Express, MasterCard, who play with it for 3 days. Okay, so just because a merchant accepts gold, they're going to save transaction fee, they're going to save their 4%, but they can get their fiat to pay their bills and to pay their salaries in the next day through Troy Money. So that the merchant platform, it just allows you as a user to not have money in a bank. You can get away from the banking system. You don't have to deal with all that BS, and you can essentially live on gold. Right now, I don't have much USD, much fiat to my name. I keep it all in precious metals. But I know that in 1 minute I could pull into my StoneX app and I can sell 2 ounces of gold and get $4,000 and have it wired into my account in 3 hours to pay my mortgage. So that's the key, is you can live on gold. You can have all your liquid holdings in gold and know that you can always access it. And in a bank, what if the bank goes under? What if they stop withdrawals? What if they don't, it takes weeks and weeks to get your liquid cash out. It doesn't happen. That doesn't happen with gold. So there's that. The other thing is, with BSV and tokenized, I can literally send you 2 cents worth of gold. You can't do that. The fractionalization of that real gold can go down to the pennies. So if I need to make a 2-cent payment, micro payment, or I need to send you $3 worth of gold, it's like Venmo. You can send somebody $3 on Venmo. I could send you $3 worth of gold tomorrow, in a second. So there's a lot of future use to this. I think a lot of smart people will be like, I'm done with my bank, $15 fees every month. I got to keep a minimum balance. I can't save. I think a lot of people will opt to go gold and get out of the failing fiat system. And I think it's about time that we get back to a hard asset.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'd love to see kind of a demo of Troy Money, and
Yeah.
I believe we have one pulled up right here.
So this is our website. It's not quite done yet, but we're final stages. So we have our front page. We have our FAQs. We have our contact and our sign in. We have a little bit of information. You've got 4 precious metals: gold, silver, palladium, platinum. We also have 2 euro. We have 2 stable coins for payments. So you're going to be able to actually use stable coins for the first time outside the digital world to actually make payments. We will be adding more of those coins. Our trusted partners, of course, StoneX and Brinks. And then just a little bit of information. It's very easy. You sign up, you deposit money, and you buy. You buy and trade. So now I'm gonna go to sign in.
Sure. Well, just before you go into the sign in, you mentioned the USD and the stable USD and stable euro. So is that also held at Brinks, or is that held?
No, that'll be held at a bank. So I go to sign in, and this is where I've got my wallet, and I sign into. And this is where we go to the actual Troy Money wallet. And we work through tokenized, so the backend infrastructure is tokenized. So I have my demo account, and now what it's doing here, it's checking credentials, which means it's notifying my phone, and it's giving me, I have to go to my phone in order so nobody else can log into my account. And we got a built-in authenticator. So I have to go to my phone and confirm that I'm trying to log in. And then it kicks into the wallet. So nobody can log in without that authenticator, which really makes it pretty safe. Now, our platform is very simple. I kept it simple because this is not built for the technology-oriented user. This is built for the simple, for the average everyday. Call us boomers, call us non-technical guys, but I think even the most technical guys will like the ease of this use. So we have our main wallet, okay? And in here, you'll see I have some gold, some platinum, palladium, silver. I have $37,000 worth of gold. I also have my currencies. These are my liquid currencies. So I have Bitcoin SV, and I have Euro, and I have USD. So that's what's in my wallet. That's my total value, $46,000 today, okay? Over here, I have my bank accounts on where I can add bank accounts so I can withdraw money and send money. This is my transaction history. So these are all the transactions that I've done on the system. I have an inbox here where we can send messages to the users. We can send updates. We can send messages. So nice, easy inbox. And then we have something that will be the future of Troy Money, which is a Troy Invest section. The Troy Invest section will allow Troy Money users to access all the alternative investments that will be eventually tokenized on the tokenized platform. So real estate, mining assets, companies, funds, you'll be able to hold those assets on your Troy Money wallet in a separate section. And you'll be able to trade them through the exchange that will be coming. So you'll be able to buy and sell mineral coin. You'll be able to buy and sell different assets for securities. These are more securities. So get back to the main screen. So you got a buy screen where you can buy instruments. So you go in here, you want to buy instruments. I want to buy Troy Gold. I want to buy 1 ounce of Troy Gold. It's $1,950. And I want to pay with Bitcoin, Euro, USD. Okay? So I'm going to pay with my USD, and I'm going to review the order, and I'm going to request. Now, this is where we're not linked to the StoneX API. but this is where when you hit request, it will automatically execute your order. The demo's not live linked, but you just hit request submit order, and you'll get a buy order set up. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the same with the sell. I want to sell my gold. This time, I don't know how many ounces I want to sell, but I want to sell $2,000 worth of it. So it'll automatically populate 1.025220 ounces. And I want to be paid in euro. Okay. So I want to have my proceeds sent to my euro account. Okay. So now all of a sudden when I hit review, it will confirm that order. I hit submit, and it will execute that order at StoneX, and you'll get a confirmation back, and your order will be sold. Your money will show up back into your euro account on your wallet, and then you can withdraw that money at any time. So very easy, right? Very simple.
Yes.
This is the other cool thing. So I want to send money to Australia. I'm going to send gold to Australia, right? So I'm going to send $1,000 worth of gold to Dan, who I owe money to because he's been a great programmer at dev.tkz.id. So this is Dan, and I owe him money, so I owe him money. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm sending Dan $1,000. I'm sending him 0.51261 ounces. Hit review. I look at, this is what I want to do. I hit send. Now, before I can do any executions, it always goes back to the app. Now, on my phone, I've got the app, and it's authenticator, tokenized authenticator. I have to hit confirm, so it's not going to send anything without me confirming. Now, transfer executed, okay? This transfer cost 0.001243 cents. If we were to do that on Ethereum, it would have been $30.
Yeah.
Okay, this is BSV.
Tenth of a penny.
Yes, exactly.
Effectively, yeah.
A tenth of a penny, yeah. So now the trade is executed. This is the smart contract for the Troy Gold. And you can get the blockchain details, and now you're confirmed. Now, if we go to the transactions, you'll see that at 9:40, I sent 0.51, I sent this Troy Gold, right? This is the transaction we just did. Here's the entity, here's the gold, here's the Troy Gold, here's the transaction, here's the send instruments, here's the transaction right here.
Yeah.
So it's very simple system. It's very easy to use. It's streamlined, easy, and then there will be a button that we add to this, which will be a loan. So let's say I have $13,000 worth of Troy Gold. At any time, I can request a draw up to 80% of that. So I can request $10,000 and get that in my account today. So let's say I have an emergency and I need $10,000. And you don't have it any other. Well, you can go to your credit card and pay 21% interest. You can go to pawn something. But going to a bank and borrow against your house, that would take weeks. Everything takes weeks to get money these days. With Troy Money, you can borrow against your assets in literally seconds. So you would just draw against these assets. You would just draw a loan at I think it's a standard overnight rate plus 3%, so about 7%. You can draw that money, and you can pay it back later. You can pay it back in gold by selling your gold, or you can slowly pay it down with withdrawals. So the instant borrowing against these balances is a feature that nobody else can offer. So emergencies happen. You need money. You don't have to sell your gold, which is on an upswing, and you're building to get a short-term loan.
Yeah. And is that pretty common and standard just in terms of, what you experience as a gold investor, that you could always draw against 80%? Is 80% a fairly common number there?
Yeah, so we don't have to go outside of our system. We don't have to go to DeFi. We don't have to go pay the third party. We don't have to send our coins over to some DeFi platform, which may lose your coins, whatever. It's all done by StoneX. It's all in-house, so the coins never move, the gold never moves. Everything just gets, your coins just get frozen, so you can't sell them. And we wire you the money through ACH, and then you have an outstanding debt to your account. It's like a margin loan against stocks. I mean, it's pretty common in the securities business. But, you know, they'll lend you 50% against Tesla shares. They'll lend you money. But nobody in the crypto world can do this. No gold-backed cryptocurrency can do this because they all have to use third parties. We have it all built in-house. Our liquidity pool is built in-house, and we can borrow against your assets. You can borrow against your assets at any time.
Yeah, that makes
no
perfect
tax
sense.
returns, no credit report, no nothing, just a draw and a loan agreement, and you're set.
Yeah, and speaking of the agreement, so now, you know, how would I, as someone that was fairly new to this platform, how would I know that the assets are actually backed by gold at, you know, at Stana or through Brinks? Is that written into a early agreement that I sign when I sign up, or is it written into the actual assets and the contracts itself?
Actually, over here, we're going to have a button that's going to be audit, and it's going to be a continuous 24/7 API pull. So we're going to pull from the StoneX account, showing how many ounces of gold Troy Money is holding on StoneX, which is in the vault. And we're going to pull from how many ounces of Troy Gold tokens are issued from the BSV blockchain. And those two numbers should continually all the time match. So at all times, we're going to be fully transparent on our reserves 1-to-1. And you're basically, and we'll audit that every 3 months. But bottom line is when you're pulling from the APIs of StoneX, they're not deceiving you, okay? You're pulling from the blockchain, that's not deceiving you. So you just have to look and check and say, there's 1 million ounces of gold in the vault. We can see that live every hour. We can see that. And there's 1 million issued Troy Gold tokens. And as long as those are always matching, you know you're always backed up.
Yeah. So perfect. So you've solved the world's, you know, primary problem, which is how to have a, you know, a gold-backed, you know, actual economy to be able to trade and to send instantly. You know, what's the next steps for you, both in terms of, you know, the you know, the delivery of this Troy Money, and then also how you're thinking maybe there could be, I heard you mention some other assets and things like that. You know, are there any other assets besides these four that are maybe in the works for the next to include?
Anything with a trading liquid global market can be turned into Troy Money. So for instance, I could buy barrels of oil, and I could store those barrels of oil in a tanker through a third-party trusted 30, and I can tokenize that, and I can give you ownership of oil, and as oil goes up or down, that's what you own, but at any time you can turn that into liquidity. So the liquid assets that can be money are usually physical traded commodities that move quickly and that have a liquid market. The other types of assets that are on our investment section, those are more like long-term assets. Those are shares of companies. Those are shares of a venture capital fund. Those are royalty instruments. Those are bonds. They could be U.S. Treasuries, tokenized U.S. Treasuries. They could be almost anything that will be the next phase where Troy Money will power what we're going to set up an exchange that's going to be linked with all of the tokenized assets. So people will be able to tokenize their multifamily building, and it's got a return, and people will be able to buy small tokens and shares in that building. That will all be powered with Troy Money in an integrated system with a live global 24/7 real world asset exchange. So there's a lot of future things besides money. Gold is money and payments. There's also the whole 30 trillion, they call it a $30 trillion future market for the tokenization of real world assets around the globe, and finally allowing the everyday investor, the everyday guy, to actually go in through his Troy Money wallet and buy some of those assets. So it becomes a bigger picture play, but phase one is buy, own, sell, and borrow against your gold, silver, platinum, palladium.
Well, you bring up a really interesting and good point because, there's a whole world out there competing for your investment dollars, you know. And the more that you get into investments, the more that you want to imagine that you're the smartest guy in the room. I've tried that. I've tried to look into, how do I evaluate, like you mentioned Tesla, am I really the best at evaluating what the real fair market value of Tesla is? I'm a fairly smart guy, but at the end of the day, this is a way over my head. But the nice part about investing in something like gold is like, well, am I necessarily the expert in determining what the real fair market value of gold is? No, but I can trust that Stana knows the difference between a real bar of gold and a bar of titanium that has some gold paint on it. I know that they're capable of doing that, and so it takes all the thinking away from me because I don't have to look at any balance sheets, think what debt's being carried. Gold doesn't carry debt. Gold's just a nice stable asset, and I can lean on the markets of scale to say, okay, well, I think I'd give myself a good shot to be able to determine what's gold and what's not. But there's probably going to be ways to trick me. But I get to leverage the power of these titans in the industry to maybe do all that risk management for me, and I just get to reap the benefits of that. Similarly to how you're just sort of, you're not an expert in transferring, UTXOs on the
No,
blockchain, etc. You understand gold, but that you get to benefit from that area of expertise and just sort of allow that to enable less friction in terms of your investment strategy.
we're bringing old school, which I am. People call me a boomer. Some people on Twitter call me a boomer, but I am a boomer. I'm actually I bring in the old school mentality, which we've been living our whole lives, and then we get with all these new cool technologists, these new coders that come up with these blockchain platforms. We get to basically merge the new school with the old school and create something that's never been done before. And that's the coolness of a Troy Money program is it's old school gold. And by the way, you are assured that if you buy Troy Money, you get LBMA serial number stamped, accredited real gold. They're good delivery bars sitting in the vault. They're not fake, and there are some fakes, but you're assured you're buying good delivery bars. You're basically buying a fraction of a 12.5 kilogram bar. That's the biggest bar they make. So we have a bunch of 12.5 kilogram good delivery LBMA accredited bars by an LBMA accredited refinery. So you're basically know when you buy Troy Money, Troy Gold, you have that.
Yeah.
And then with the new school, with the tech, with all these wizards, I mean, there are some smart people out there on the Web3 side and the tech side. And bringing the old school real world assets together with the new school blockchain, and especially BSV, which I've totally bought into as probably the best chain for future and for scale and for economic transactions. This provides for a solution that I don't think is out there right now.
Yeah, and that's that. Like you said, sometimes there are mistakes. There are, but that's why you have insurance. You're backed by the largest company, Lloyd's of London, because yeah, if something did happen where one of those bars turned out to have something that wasn't genuine about it, guess what? That's not your responsibility
Not your
because
responsibility.
yeah, you're leaning on, that's that when you work with, and that's something that you get afforded when you're a really high net wealth individual. You get the ability to have that not be your problem. If I'm walking down the street and buying some gold off somebody, that's my responsibility whether or not that checks out. It's And the guy that's sitting on the corner store that's accepting gold that's walking in off the street, that's not all the times a bar or stamped or anything like this, but it's in a necklace form, right? That he has to become the expert in determining whether that's real gold or not. And I'm sure there's times when he gets, when he makes a mistake, even though it's his profession. Um, so Garrett, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through Troy Money. Before we close this up, speaking of the guy on the corner store selling, did you ever get into kind of like, numismatics or old, like old coins or old notes from the 1800s and the history of money and stuff like that? Was that something that you were interested in?
No, I'm not. I learned a lot watching Kurt Werkert's thing at the London Blockchain Conference last May about when he did the history of money. So that was actually kind of cool to go back and to see the origins of money and see it presented that way. So that was very educational. I really didn't get into that, and I'm more into the production of the metal, which is my expertise. But it is a really cool space for history to see where money came from.
Yeah. And for me, when I was younger, I was probably about 18 years old or so. I got into, precious metals and bullion and all of this stuff. I was going on Kitco.com and checking all of that
Yeah,
stuff. And what I would do is I would go to the bank and request $500 worth of half dollars, and they'd give them to me rolled up, and I would take a razor blade and I would slice down the roll and pinch it and look at whichever ones are shiny. Those are the ones that are made out of silver. So I just take those ones out, and we would go through like we call it a washing halves. Like we do like
yeah,
dollars sitting there watching TV, pulling half dollars out of circulation because
wow.
those were made of silver back in the day. So I find all of that stuff really fascinating. And, the idea of going back to actually paying with real silver, or real gold in this case. And I know that you involved, palladium and platinum. This is something that really speaks to me. I'm really excited to see its development and advance. I just want to tell you that, I'll be there trying to showcase the value to those merchants, because once merchants realize that they can actually accept a hard currency or a hard asset like gold, and like you said, convert it into cash for paying electric bills and stuff like that right away. I think that it's just one small sector of the world, right? How we pay each other, but it in a way, blockchain technology enables this distributed consensus where it doesn't have to come from a single authoritative source. And similarly, I think if we can get our payments methods out from the single authoritative source of a single government that says that this is how much of this as or these this money has been printed today, like you said, 36 trillion, 41 trillion next year, etc. That's not going to go down anytime soon. So it's almost like, I hate to use these words, but it's like almost like an alcoholic that cannot take the bottle away from their hand, right? That bottle needs to be removed from their hand, because if you just let them decide, they're going to continue making these very simple but damaging and devastating decisions. So
Well, think about this. Let's say a merchant, a bar takes Troy Gold from many of its customers, and then they can convince their employees to take Troy Gold to pay their employees. Then they can convince the vendors of the liquor to take Troy Gold to pay that. Then it never has to come back to fiat. It just keeps going down the line, being used as payment. Somewhere down the line, somebody may want fiat, but if everybody starts accepting gold again, now the thing never comes back to fiat.
right. Yeah, I mean, people always use the example of to pay the electric. What if the electric company accepted gold for payment? Then you'd never have to go back to fiat.
That's the future. That's where it makes Troy Money the multi-unicorn. That's where gold becomes real money again. And here's the thing. No matter what country in the world you're at, no matter where in the planet you're at, gold has the same price. So it's not
Exactly.
like, oh, I'm in euros, my euro's worth 107 on the US dollar, and I'm in Hong Kong, my yuan is. Gold is universal, global. Everybody knows what it's worth, and that's what makes it a global value.
Yeah. Okay, well, Garrett, thank you so much for demoing Troy Money. We'd love to have you back on the show to go over everything that's coming up for Troy Money once we start to integrate that into the payment system. And yeah, I can't wait to get started and buy some gold right away.
And our goal is sometime in early November, we're going to be onboarding our first customers. We got 180 customers waiting in the queue to onboard. So we're looking to come out with a nice soft launch, get people into gold, get people using the system, and excited about the ramp.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and you've been just cruising along. You know, you came in with the mission, and you've checked every box off on that path. And we're really excited to see your launch next month.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day.
What an amazing world. You know, you're talking to someone who theoretically, like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, we could be looking back at the individual who revitalized a gold economy to actually utilize gold as a payment system. And you know that the implications, it's just one small sector of the economy. There's there's manufacturing, there's all types of stuff. But you know, the importance that has, that can't be overstated. I want to thank so much Garrett Krause from Troy Money for being on the show, and please stay tuned to Bitcoin Builders. Check out all of our other content. My name is Brett Bamfey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you check back for our next episode. Thanks so much. Have a great day.